In this section, we are going to be drawing the greatest fruit known to man. That's right, I'm talking about a strawberry. I think the best way to learn is by doing, like I've said before, and in this section, we're going to be learning all about layers. And so, in order to do that, I thought it'd be best to actually take a project and let's build it step by step. Now, as we go through this, you might want to pause this video at any time and catch up or kind of review some things. That is perfectly acceptable. In fact, I think it would be great if you took out your iPad and draw along with me as we're going through these things. I think that's a wonderful way to reinforce a lot of these things we're doing by actually sitting down and drawing. So, we're going to start by drawing this strawberry, and I'm going to be using some very basic shapes and some really just kind of some of the techniques that I like to use that are very simple but easy to do. Anybody can do this, so don't feel too intimidated as we go through. Drawing just takes a lot of practice, and so consider this like part of your practice, learning some of these skills while you're learning the program. So let us get started. The first thing that I do when I am drawing is that I like to lay down my pencils. I talked about this before in the last section when we were shading circles. And so I go to my brush and I make sure that I am on my pencil tool. I just use the technical pencil. At this point, I just want to rough out some shapes, and I think I like using pencils because they're a little bit transparent, and it feels like sketching to me. So once I'm on my pencil, I'm good to go there. I want to go to my layers in the upper right-hand corner as well, so I'm going to go ahead and tap on those. And our layers have names, and by default, when we create a new layer, it just numbers that layer for us. I want to rename this layer because I want to be able to keep track of this. What often happens when I'm drawing is I stack up my layers and I get a little confused as to what is on what layer. So if I just tap on that layer, anywhere on that layer, you're going to see this little box pop up. And there are several things in this box. We can rename, we could select that layer, copy, fill layer, clear, alpha lock, mask, reference. We're going to be talking about a lot of these things later, but for now I want to focus on just renaming it. So if I tap rename, it brings up my dialog box. I can hit delete and I can rename this. I'm going to call this pencils because this is going to be my pencil layer. When I'm done, I can make my keyboard go away. And there we go. I have renamed my layer. I have selected my pencil. So at this point, I think I'm ready to start drawing. So where am I going to start with the strawberry? I'm going to start with a circle. You're going to notice this a lot. I like basic shapes a lot. And the nice thing about this is it doesn't have to be perfect. I just kind of rough in my strawberry, rough in my circle. Now, strawberry obviously isn't a circular fruit, but I'm using this as the base of the strawberry. Now, oftentimes a strawberry actually goes out a little bit further than a circle, right? So maybe I draw like a little line along the bottom and I draw the edge of the fruit kind of down here, kind of like a little arc. And then I could just take this arc and I can connect it using my pencil up there. And I might round the corner of that strawberry a little bit. And as you can see, I'm a pretty sloppy sketcher. I just get a bunch of lines down. I'm just trying to figure out where everything goes. So that is kind of looking like a strawberry. I might kind of change my arc as I go, but your strawberry doesn't have to be perfect. We're just kind of capturing that shape. And then once I get that shape in there, I'm just going to take my eraser and get rid of some of the excess lines, like this arrow I drew and this line in the middle. I think it just makes it a little bit easier to read. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to kind of get the shape together. So there we go. This is starting to look like a strawberry to me. Now I'm going to go back to my paintbrush here, and I'm going to draw the leaves on top. Now, I like to think of things circularly, so these leaves are kind of coming from this oval shape, right? That's on the top. And I think part of this oval, like this section that I'm messing with now, maybe that's falling behind the strawberry. So after I get my oval in there, maybe I go in there and I erase that part. And now my leaves are kind of curling around. And my leaves, let's think of the leaves as like triangles, right? And then I add a little bit extra onto that triangle to make that look like a leaf. And then I have another triangle coming from this angle. Now I can go ahead and I can round that triangle. And maybe there's another triangle over here. And that's kind of going behind the strawberry, so I'm going to have to erase this. But before I do that, I'm going to draw yet another triangle over here. So now that is kind of how I'm thinking I'm going to draw the leaves on here. So now I can come in with my eraser and I can just go in here and I can take out some of these extra lines that I don't need to clean things up. There we go. Got to take out some of these extra lines on my leaves to make them cleaner. So that's how that strawberry is looking. The other thing that our strawberry has is a stem, and our stem is easy to draw. Think of it as just 2 lines coming out the top, and then we could flatten it off. Or if you want to get more detailed, we could round off that stem as well and take off that little bit of that line there. So there we go. This is the rough shape for the strawberry we're going to draw. For my next step, I'm going to start just laying down some solid colors here. So if you want to fiddle with your strawberry in Sketch, go ahead and pause the video at this point, finish up your strawberry, and when you're ready to start adding your solid colors, go ahead and restart the video. So to lay down my solid colors, I'm going to go back to my layers. So in the upper right hand corner, I'm going to tap on layers again, and I'm going to create a new layer. Now how we do that is we hit the plus button in the upper right hand corner of our layers palette. So I tap on that, and it's created a new layer. It's called layer 2, but I don't want it called that, so I'm going to tap on that layer. I'm going to then go to the very first option, which is rename. So I'm going to rename that layer. Going to just hit delete and rename this color. And I'm going to call this color red because I'm going to be keeping my colors on different layers as I go. So color red is going to be my berry color. And then I'm going to pick out my color. So I'm going to close my layers and I'm going to tap on that little color circle in the upper right hand corner. And I'm just going to slide over to the red area, probably right in here looks good. And then I'm going to slide, go back to red, and then I'm going to slide my secondary circle here more towards the red. Now, the further you get to the edge of that, the more intense it is. I like to pull it back. In real life, you very rarely get that intense of color as you find on the edge. So I'm going to go with a pretty solid red. Maybe I pull it down into the darkness a little more so it's not quite as intense. Maybe not. So I'm just fiddling with color. So there we go. I got a nice shade of red. So I'm going to go ahead and tap off of that color. Now, I'm not going to use my pencil this time. I'm going to use a solid color. I want this to be a solid strawberry. So I'm going to tap on that brush, and I'm going to find the brush that I want to use. I'm going to use an inking brush. And the reason I like these inking brushes is because they have a nice crisp edge. Here, I'll draw a shape and show you what I'm talking about. See that? That has a nice crisp edge on it. It doesn't have a lot of fading or anything like that. So I really like the technical pencil, or the technical pen it's called. So that's the pen I am going to be using for this particular exercise. So now that I have my pen and I have my color, I'm ready to color in this strawberry. Now this part is pretty easy. I might pinch in to get a better angle on it, and I'm going to increase the size of my brush to make it the size that, so I'm coloring a little more space, and I'm just going to trace this pencil. And if you're using your finger or a stylus, you can go as fast or as slow as you want. It doesn't have to be precise at this point. We're just kind of practicing. So there we go. I'm starting to just trace this shape. Part of what having that pencil line underneath does for me is it lets me make a cleaner line. I don't have to second guess myself while I am drawing that line. Now, if you're familiar with other painting tools like desktop drawing and painting apps, you're probably familiar with the idea of a paint bucket tool. And when you look around Procreate, you might be thinking, Procreate doesn't have a paint bucket tool. What a paint bucket tool does in many apps is that it fills in a large area with color. Well, I have good news. Procreate does have something like the paint bucket tool. It is called the color drop tool. Let me show you how it works. If you have a shape like this circle that I just drew, and it is completely filled in other words, a shape like this won't work because there's actually a hole right there, but this shape, I made sure that I filled in that edge. But if this shape is totally full, I can then drag my color. So what I do is I place my finger on that circle in the upper right, and I drag that circle down, and when I put it in the middle, it just filled that space for me. Now let's try it out on this guy over here who is not filled in. So let's see if it breaks through to the other side. Since that wasn't a completely closed circle, it just filled the entire space with the color red. We do not want to do that. So I'm going to, what I need to do with my strawberry here is I need to fill this in, and that means that I have to connect these two lines in order to close that shape. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to put my finger on that color circle in the upper right hand corner, and I'm going to then, after putting my finger down, I'm going to drag it off and drag it into my strawberry and let go, and I've just filled in that space. Now you've probably noticed something. If I zoom in, you can see it pretty clearly. It has left kind of these fuzzies along the side, which are really ugly. And so you could go in here with your pen like I was doing and just clean up those fuzzies, which is kind of time consuming. But there's a better way to do this. So let me undo a couple times here, get our strawberry to its former self. This is one of the coolest things about the color drop, and I'm going to show you now. I'm going to drag my color in there, but after I hover over, I am not going to lift my finger off the canvas, and you're going to see something happen. So I don't lift my finger, I'm still holding, and in the upper part of the screen, there is a blue line, and it says Color Drop Threshold. If I move my finger to the right, you'll see that blue line go up, and what happens as I slide it up is my threshold goes up. And did you see what else happens? It starts to fill in that extra white. So if you ever find yourself looking at something like this and you want to fill in more color, what you have to do is use this color drop threshold and make sure you slide it up higher, and so it fills in all of the space that you need it to fill in. Oftentimes what I find is people accidentally will slide that down, and then when they go to fill in, it seems like it's broken. It's not broken, it's just a feature that's kind of tucked away in there. Alright, so I'm going to grab my eraser, and I'm just going to get rid of some of these extra shapes that I put in here that I no longer need. So I'm going to just erase these rather quickly. So our next step is to draw the leaves on this strawberry. So to do that, I'm going to grab a different color. I'm going to tap on my color, and I'm going to make those leaves green. So I'm just going to go to my green here, and probably pull it back to be a slightly less intense green. And once I have my color that I like, I'm going to just go ahead and tap off that. Now you probably have noticed something. I can't see my pencil lines anymore because it's covered by my ink. Well, let's go back to our layers and let's rearrange our layers a little bit. So I'm going to tap on my layers in the upper right hand corner, and I'm going to move my color red layer underneath my pencil layer. So if I tap and hold on that layer, you will see it changed a little bit, and that lets me drag it anywhere I want. I only have 2 layers, so I'm just going to drag it down here, and when I let go, there we go. My color red is now underneath my pencil lines. This makes it really handy, so you could always be able to see your pencil lines while you're drawing. Another thing that you may notice is that the pencil lines are rather dark, and they might get in the way. So sometimes when I'm drawing, I like to change the opacity of my layers. There's several things going on in this little layer. For example, I can actually toggle off this layer, my pencil layer, by tapping on that checkbox on the right-hand side. So if I tap on that checkbox, what happened? My pencils disappeared. So that's a good way to toggle your layers on and off to check to see how things are going. I'm going to turn that back on, and then there's the letter N next to it. I'm going to be diving into what that means later. Actually, I'll tell you now. N stands for normal. That means this layer is behaving like a normal layer. But there's a lot of different functions you can do there. But for now, let's just tap on that letter N, and it brings up a whole bunch of options. The only option we care about now is the one at the very top that says opacity, and there's a slider. And basically what that does is it makes it more transparent. So as I slide that down, you can see my lines got a lot lighter. If I slide it up, my lines get a lot darker. So let's make it a little bit transparent. Change the opacity down to like 20%, looks good. So this way we can still see those pencil lines, but they're not getting in our way. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to tap on N, and there we go. It closed those options. Now I'm going to be drawing these leaves on a different layer than what I have drawn my color red on. So I can create a layer. When I tap on this new layer, that plus button, it's going to pop that layer directly above the layer that I'm currently on. I want it to be below pencils and above color red. So I'm going to tap on color red first and then tap plus. I could always rearrange it, but I find it easier sometimes just to kind of figure out where you are and create your new layer from there. And then of course I'm going to rename it. And I'm going to rename this Leaves, L-E-A-V-E-S. Oops, I forgot to delete layer 3 first. Leaves. I really hope I'm spelling things right. I'm a horrible speller. It'd be terrible if I'm just shouting out the wrong thing. So I'm making sure here that I'm still on my technical pen, which I'm not surprised that I am. So I've got my color, I got my pen, I got my layer. I'm ready to start drawing. So I'm going to zoom on in here. And again, I'm just going to trace. I'm going to come in here with this pen and I'm going to trace my lines. And there we go. Gonna get this leaf in there. There that goes. Gonna get the edge of this leaf right here. And as you can see, I'm not being perfect. I'm just kind of getting the basics in there. Maybe this leaf just overlaps a little bit. And then I come in here, fill that in. And then I can use my color drop again. I can drag that color green in, drop it into place. Everything's looking good. I can then, I just zoomed in a little bit. I can come in here and I can draw in that stem. I could just fill it in because it's just a small area. And there we go. So our strawberry is looking kind of strawberry-y here at this point.